Compassion, in the context of Buddhism, is one of the most central and revered qualities that practitioners strive to cultivate. It is not merely an emotional response, but an active state of mind, a spiritual practice that leads to both personal development and enlightenment. Compassion in Buddhism is made up of two essential components: metta, loving kindness, and karuna, sympathy. Metta, a benevolent, unconditional love that wishes all beings to be happy. Karuna, the ability to empathize with the suffering of others and a strong desire to alleviate their pain. Together, these aspects of compassion guide practitioners to see beyond their own suffering and extend kindness and care to all sentient beings. Compassion, therefore, is not limited to a fleeting feeling. It is an enduring, transformative practice that plays a key role in achieving inner peace and eventual enlightenment. In Buddhism, compassion is an essential part of the path to liberation. By understanding and practicing compassion, we free ourselves from the narrow confines of self-centeredness and begin to connect with the universal suffering and happiness of all beings. Compassion is not just a noble ideal in Buddhism, but a guiding principle that underpins the entire ethical framework. It is embedded within the four divine abodes, Brahmaviharas, which are foundational Buddhist practices meant to cultivate the heart and mind in the direction of enlightenment. The four divine abodes are metta, loving kindness, the wish for all beings to be happy; karuna, compassion, the wish to alleviate suffering; mudita, sympathetic joy, the joy in the happiness and success of others; upekkha, equanimity, the quality of even-mindedness, especially in the face of both joy and suffering. Compassion, in this context, is much more than just feeling for someone's suffering. It is a deep understanding and a proactive desire to alleviate suffering. Buddhism teaches that true compassion arises from realizing the interconnectedness of all beings and recognizing that all sentient beings share in the experience of suffering and joy. Compassion has deep implications not only for our spiritual growth, but also for how we interact with the world around us. In Buddhism, compassion is seen as a transformative force. Here are some of the ways compassion impacts our lives. Compassion toward oneself. In modern life, many people forget to treat themselves with kindness. Practicing compassion begins with how we treat ourselves. Instead of self-criticism or neglect, compassion calls us to accept our flaws, treat ourselves with respect, and recognize our intrinsic value. When we learn to love ourselves, we are more equipped to share that love and compassion with others. Compassion toward others. Buddhism teaches that compassion should extend to all beings, regardless of their background or circumstances. A compassionate person does not limit their kindness to family or friends, but extends it to all sentient beings. This includes not just those who are easy to love, but also those who may be difficult to understand or relate to. Compassion means that we actively seek ways to alleviate others' suffering, whether through words, actions, or simply understanding. Compassion toward the world. The practice of compassion also extends beyond personal relationships. A Buddhist practitioner understands that the world is full of suffering, and therefore they feel a responsibility to engage in activities that promote the well-being of others. This might include working towards environmental protection, supporting social justice, or promoting peace. Compassion for the world involves recognizing that all beings are interconnected, and the suffering of one affects us all. Compassion is closely tied to other important virtues in Buddhism, and one of the most important is mudita, sympathetic joy, and upekkha, equanimity. Mudita is the ability to feel joy for others' happiness and success without jealousy or envy. It is an essential counterpart to compassion because it opens the heart and allows us to rejoice in the well-being of others, rather than being consumed by negative emotions such as jealousy. Upekkha is equanimity, which is maintaining a balanced, even-minded attitude regardless of circumstances. This practice helps prevent emotional disturbances in the face of both joy and suffering. By cultivating equanimity, a practitioner can maintain a compassionate attitude without being overwhelmed by the emotional ups and downs of life. Together, these qualities create a harmonious and balanced approach to compassionate living. allowing one to engage with the world without losing peace of mind. In Buddhism, the ultimate goal is nirvana, or enlightenment, which is the cessation of suffering and the realization of the true nature of reality. Compassion is considered a vital means to reach this state. Buddha taught that compassion can lead us to enlightenment by opening our hearts to the interconnectedness of all beings. By developing a heart that is filled with compassion for all sentient beings, we break down the barriers of selfishness and egotism, thus gaining a deeper understanding of the nature of existence. When we practice compassion, we begin to dissolve the walls of ignorance and self-attachment, which are the root causes of suffering. This practice leads us to realize the impermanent and interconnected nature of life, thus setting the foundation for spiritual awakening. Buddhism is not just a theoretical system, it is a way of life. Practicing compassion, therefore, should be reflected in our everyday actions. Below are some practical ways to cultivate compassion in daily life. Empathy and understanding. When we encounter people who are suffering or behaving in negative ways, instead of reacting with anger or frustration, compassion encourages us to try to understand their suffering. We can empathize with their pain and seek ways to alleviate it, even if it is simply by offering kind words or listening with an open heart. Acts of kindness. Compassion is not just a feeling, but requires action. One way to practice compassion is by helping others, whether it is through charitable acts, supporting those in need, or simply offering a helping hand to someone in difficulty. These small gestures can make a big difference in someone's life. Forgiveness. Compassion also teaches the power of forgiveness. Holding on to anger or resentment only harms the person holding those emotions. Through forgiveness, we release negative emotions and allow ourselves and others to experience freedom and healing. Though compassion is a noble and virtuous quality, practicing it in life can be challenging. We may face difficult people, negative emotions, or circumstances that test our patience. However, these challenges are precisely what allow us to develop deeper compassion. By recognizing the suffering of others and responding with empathy, we grow in both wisdom and love. Buddhism teaches that suffering is a part of life, but we do not have to suffer unnecessarily. Through the cultivation of compassion, we can transform our relationship with suffering, using it as an opportunity for growth and understanding. Compassion is not only a balm for the pain of others, but also a healing force for ourselves. Conclusion. The power and meaning of compassion. Compassion is not merely a moral ideal in Buddhism, but a practical path to awakening. By practicing compassion, we free ourselves from the cycles of selfishness and suffering. Compassion teaches us to understand the shared experience of all beings, and through this understanding, we gain the wisdom to alleviate suffering, both in ourselves and others. The path of compassion leads to a more harmonious and fulfilled life, not just for individuals, but for the world as a whole. By embodying compassion, we become living expressions of love, understanding, and peace, thus contributing to the greater good of all sentient beings.